Hi, everybody. My name is Lachi, and I want to welcome everyone to the Women in Music Disability Awareness as it pertains to the music industry panel. Thank you for joining us. I'm really excited that you're here, and I hope you enjoy what we have to show you guys today, what we have to talk about today. A few really quick housekeeping things. If you need to use closed captioning, you can always scroll over to where it says CC, click on that, click on, and you will turn on your closed captioning. And you can always affect the zoom of the captioning by going into your settings and hitting accessibility. Also, I'm gonna ask all of the speakers to identify themselves before they speak. So if Galen would like to budge in and start talking, I'm gonna make sure that she says, hey, it's Galen, before she speaks, just so that we can always be aware of who's talking at any given time. All right, so let's get this show on the road, guys. Again, welcome to the Women in Music Disability Awareness as it pertains to the music industry. I'm here with some very amazing women that I'm really excited to talk to about a lot of really important things. We got a lot to cover, so I'm gonna just go ahead and jump right in and introduce myself. My name is Lachi. I am a New York artist, recording artist, an award-nominated songwriter. I've worked on a whole bunch of things. I'm a novelist as well, but I'm also a disability and diversity inclusion advocate. I just say all that to let you know the authority that I have in this realm. But enough about me. I want to turn it over to some of these amazing, amazing women that we have with us today. Ladies, I want you to just kind of say your name, maybe say where you're located, and say what your role is in the industry. I'm gonna start with you, Vicki. How about you let us know what you're all about?
Hi, I'm Vicki Landers. I'm CEO and president of Disability Pride Philadelphia. My role is to make sure that any of the things that happen are inclusive and accessible for everyone. It's something that I really enjoy. I've been working on for 9 years and continue to make sure that artists are a part of everything that we do. And making sure that it is accessible for them to be able to have the space.
Awesome, awesome. I love that. Let's jump over to you, Yvette. Why don't you give us a little rap sheet on yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Yvette, aka Misschivers, that's my DJ name and producer name, based in the UK, near Cambridge. I've been DJing for 15, 20 years now, and I have a sight disorder called retinitis pigmentosa, and I was diagnosed of that when I was about 23, before I even started DJing. And since then I've been developing lots of projects for young people with sight loss and trying to link the two together, like the music and the kind of sight loss awareness. And I think that, I've got quite a good aspect and experiences from not being, well, it's different things, isn't it? One, being a woman in the music industry, it's one thing. And then with a disability in the music industry, but you put the two together and it's just not negative things, but kind of positive things, but just insights into how it's been.
Right.
Things can perhaps be better, But I work with,
awesome.
I work alongside a few organizations as well, which I'll mention to you later. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Yvette. How about we jump to you, Victoria? Why don't you give us a little bit about yourself? You do a lot.
Oh gosh, yeah. Hi everyone, I'm Victoria Modesta. I'm actually originally Eastern European, grew up in London, but I now live in Los Angeles as of the last couple of years. And I very much do a lot of different things, but I'm primarily known kind of for my work as a bionic performance artist, and I cover everything from music to performance art, and I do a lot of creative direction and art direction. And yeah, I guess I've sort of done a lot of sort of wild things in the post-disability space in the last decade, but we can talk about a couple of those things later. That'll be me.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Galen. Let's jump on over to you. What do you got for us?
Hi, I'm Galen Lee. I'm a violinist and a songwriter and a disability rights advocate. So in 2016, I entered and won NPR Music's Tiny Desk contest, which was 6,000 people from all over the US. So it was a big boost of national exposure for me, and I started touring after that, and then starting to realize that these accessibility issues that I had experienced in my hometown actually exist all over the world. And so getting a lot more vocal about how do we create accessible art spaces. A couple of years ago, I decided not to play at inaccessible venues anymore, and I'm trying to think about how that kind of decision crosses over into the virtual realm right now. And so speaking up about this stuff and challenging non-disabled artists to do the same is sort of what motivates me.
Nice. And Miss Jackie, tell us about yourself as well.
I'm Miss Jackie. I'm a spoken word artist, poet, songwriter, all-round goofball. I'm London, so I've been creating music as far back as I can remember, and like just navigating this industry has been a wild and sometimes difficult journey, but I'm here to try and make a huge difference as time and life goes on. So yeah, that's me.
I love it. I love it. This is great. I mean, I'm here with a bunch of really amazing women, all of whom I look up to in one way or another. So I'm very excited to be sharing this virtual stage with all of you. All right, why don't we just get into some topics? We have a lot to cover here. And so I just want to jump right in. So a 2019 Harvard Business Review article had mentioned that while 30% of people who are working in America actually do happen to have a disability, only about 40% actually disclose their disability to their employers. And as small as 4% actually disclose it to their actual clients. So I want to talk a little bit about disclosure, about being open about your disability. And I want to just get your take on your thoughts about disclosure and being open about your disability. Let's just jump right into that. Maybe I could toss that to you, Vicki. I know that you have a non-visible disability. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about disclosure?
Yeah, sure. This is Vicki. I am a person with mental health and autoimmune disabilities. I also have a physical disability that sometimes people see and sometimes people don't. But I'm a very proud disabled woman, and I make sure that I always disclose it. If I find that in my industry that it is very important to show your representation, to have it out there. It is basically what I work on 24 hours a day, is about disability pride, being proud of who you are. And so I really, I ask everybody to disclose, but I do understand. I have a lot of difficult conversations with people who are afraid to disclose their disability, especially for me. For me, when I tell somebody that I have a mental health disability, I am bipolar, that the stigma behind mental health is just incredible and overwhelming at times. Yeah. And they automatically assume all of the horrible things that you see on TV.
Right.
And that is what it is. And it's really not. And I think the only way that we get around, we fight this stigma and we overcome this, the horrible stigma around it, is being open and honest and talking about it. So many more folks in the industry are talking about their mental health disabilities, which is great, but there's a whole lot of work to do.
Right, I agree. Let me toss it over to you, Victoria. I know that you use actually your disability in your art as a very artistic sort of tool. Talk to me about disclosure. I want to hear your opinion on this and your thoughts.
Oh, I have to tell you actually that I haven't had one of these conversations with an actual panel of people who identify as disabled, like ever. I'm a little bit new in this kind of way. And, you know, I've had a very up and down relationship with all of it, to be honest. Mostly, I feel like there is, from a perspective of a person, I feel like there tends to be a difference of how we sort of might view ourselves, especially whether it's a disability that you encounter later in life or whether it's something that you were born with. And I feel like from just some conversations in the past, it's like, I just remember that when I was born, even though the entire society around me in Eastern Europe, like from trying to put me in an orphanage after having like, you know, an accident during birth to like all the kind of pettiness that happened throughout my childhood, I just always felt like myself. And I never really felt that there was anything wrong with me. Like, even though I could see that, you know, I had sort of like limitations in my physical ability. So, you know, I kind of just, I really went for a very long time in my life feeling like I didn't really feel disabled in my mind. You know, I remember stopping my mom from like getting her certificate from the doctor that I have a disability because I was just like, I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand. And I think that, however, you know, later in life, I think, you know, I really found that I really resonated with what you said, Vicki, about, you know, the perception of disability in our pop culture, and literally that out of so many important public issues that we face, it's the one thing that has so much negative history and so little has been done. So I think that when I had the opportunity to perform at the Paralympic closing ceremony in London, like I guess it was years ago, 8 years ago or something like that. And that was the first time that I realized that there's a global community of people who are actually like, I don't know, like, you know, there's people who are affected by similar things and there's a support around it and all that kind of stuff. And I have to say that after that time, even though my personal sort of feelings about it have still been really up and down, and if you look throughout my career, there's been times where I've been really public about it, and there's been other times where I really haven't at all. And in a lot of my personal conversations, unless I really feel like there is a need, I often don't talk about it at all. But you know, when it came to a professional position, and I realized that there is so much work that can be done in this space, and there is so much work that needs to be done in this space, and you know, receiving like thousands of letters from people who have been affected by a couple of the projects that I did, I was like, actually, you know, I think I need to like think about this, and I need to see how I can contribute to the space. So it's kind of, honestly, it's been pretty complex. So I'm really excited to like hear about what you all guys are thinking. Also, I have to say that I feel like it's really important to recognize the possibilities and what needs to be done or should be done, or how we should talk about it now that the internet is at play. Because honestly, when I started doing this, I honestly, like, there was no, like, you would go into Google and you would type like, I don't know, you know, disabled artist or disabled model or disability, anything, you know, and the limitations of what was coming up and what was available to be seen by the public was so small. And that has just skyrocketed in the last 8 years, like beyond what I ever imagined, you know. So it's kind of it's a very new space, it's a very different space, you know, and it's really exciting to see everyone kind of, you know, figuring out their own voice and their own input. And there's probably like a lot of different ways to think about it. Is, you know, if you look at people with, you know, from LGBTQ community or anything like that, it's like how you identify and how exactly that shows in your life and what you choose to disclose or not disclose becomes like very personal. And I think there's one way, you know.
Yeah, no, you actually you raise some pretty interesting points, especially in my own experience. I mean, I only, I guess, came out as a person with a disability relatively recently as well, because I have the ability to hide it per se. I mean, I can't as much as I used to be able to. But the interesting thing is, and it's kind of back to Vic, there's two Vickies here. Back to Vicki's point, is that once you do disclose, especially when you self-disclose, there is a freedom to it. There's an owning to it. But then again, as Victoria said, it's like, you know, everyone is their own person, and everyone who has a disability does experience it differently. So disclosure is different to everyone, because some people may think, what am I disclosing? I'm just me. But you also brought up another really great point, Victoria, about LGBTQ and just other races. And I still want to continue on this kind of line of thought, but I want to change it just a little bit. And I'm going to come to you, Yvette. You know, 1 in 4 adults have a disability. That's 61 million Americans. I don't know what the number is in the UK, but the CDC has put out that 61 million Americans have a disability. Why is it that when we talk about diversity, especially when everyone tries to come together to speak of diversity, we're only really talking about race, we're only really talking about gender, religion, sexual preference? This is all great. It's great that we're having these conversations, but why is it that disability isn't really included in that? Yvette, I'm gonna come to you, because I know that you're in a pretty cutthroat industry, being a DJ, a very, not to mince words, but a very white male industry. So I know you hear a lot about race issues and you hear a lot about gender issues. Why don't we hear enough about disability issues when it comes to diversity?
I have no idea. Like, literally, I don't know the answer to that one. But it is a question to be asked. And I think maybe it's not, I really don't know. You know, the race and the culture and that kind of inclusion is becoming really important, but maybe because there was something that started it, or I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know why disability and inclusion are separate things. But I wish they were kind of pulled together, you know, more to
what do you, I mean, like, what do you think we could sort of, I don't know, I guess the question sort of is, what could we kind of do?
Well, I think the other thing is because people don't shout, but like we've all just been saying, you know, I'm really interested in what the rest of you ladies are saying about the you know, disclosures, because I think, again, it's people now are getting really they're overcoming their fears, and they're actually shouting out and actually being positive and proud about the LGBTQ, about the race, about the culture. Whereas I think disability still has that stigma, not, you know, not a world stigma, but personal stigma. And I think that's it. The disclosure comes hand in hand with this. That's probably my personal opinion. In that I haven't, you know, I didn't disclose I still choose not to now sometimes, depending on how I think people are going to take it, whether they think I'm going to be less able to do my job. One, DJing in a really dark place, I can't see sod all at night time. I've got night blindness is one of the things. And, you know, people still tend to think I'm completely drunk when I'm not, because I can't see them. When you know, and it's just one of those things. And it's like, do I let them know that I've got this, or do I just let them think I'm a drunk? And you know, all this kind of stuff. But it's that whole, you don't want people to think that you're less able to do your job. And if you admit something like that, especially when it's a hidden disability, are you putting yourself in a position where you're going to get less work? You know, and I think it's about, I've only recently started to own it, like you said, like, and I think it's an age thing. With sight disorders, especially progressive one or degenerative ones, you do go through a massive denial phase. And my denial phase was about 10, 15 years. And the doctor said that would happen. It's almost textbook how it happened. And when I came out of that 15 years denial phase, then I started to talk about it, because it's always changing. You're always having to change yourself. And also, you know, with my abilities to DJ, you're always having to amend the way that you work. So if you're doing that all the time, how are you supposed to tell other people? Because in about another year's time, you might have another level of your disability where you kind of, people won't understand. They're like, well, you were this last year, now you're this year. You know, do you understand what I'm saying? So I think that's why I think it's still harder for myself and maybe for other people having a hidden disability to actually admit it, because you don't want it to affect your career.
Got it. Yeah. That is definitely a really good point. And it's definitely, again, something that I related to, just being like, you know what, it is something that I still do sometimes. You know, if I get like a voiceover gig, I'm not going to say, by the way, I can't see the script. I'm just going to do the script and let them think that I saw it. So who cares?
There's been a couple of comments on the webinar chat. I'm not sure if you can answer this, Lachi, but a few people have said they don't have the option for closed captioning. I don't know whether
Okay.
you know about that. And this one said that Zoom doesn't automatically do it. But just another one. Adi Yacobi from Israel says, "You're all amazing. Thank you for raising the awareness." There you go.
Awesome. I just wanted to say to women in music, if anyone from the tech side is watching this, I'm not sure if I personally don't have my CC turned on, but if you guys are doing the live CC, I believe someone has just put in that they're not able to be getting the live CC. I think that if the live CC is happening, you should be able to scroll up to the CC section, click on CC and turn it on. And also, I just wanted to say really quick, Yvette, we'll go to all the questions at the end after we're done sort of this discussion, and we'll get through all of those. But I actually want to jump over to Miss Jackie, who's been nice and quiet over there. I want to get you talking. Let's go back to this discussion on why is it that disability is not considered a diversity. I know that you, as well as Galen actually, have a bit of a bone to pick with venues. That the industry tends not to think about disability, especially when it comes to performance spaces. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that? I know you have a lot to say on that topic.
Oh yeah, I don't think we got enough time, but yeah, there's just this thing. So like, I'm a wheelchair user. You can't see it at the moment, which is great thing about Zoom. And I think that thing of nobody's thinking about these things, like nobody's talking about it in the industry, and it's frustrating because I think it goes back to the point of like, why aren't people talking about it? What happened? Right. Well, my experience is that communities like are forced to put themselves in like silos. So if you are from a Black community, you can only shout about Black issues. If you are a disability, like if you have a disability or you're from the deaf and disabled and neurodivergent community, you're only allowed to shout about that. If you are from the LGBTQ plus community, you can only shout about that. And it's like, we are all intersectional. We are all, right. We're not like all monolithic and just deal with one thing at a time. And I think, especially in the last like year, well, let's say the whole of 2020, let's just say that. I've kind of gotten to a point where I'm going to shout about whatever issue that I want or whatever issue I need to bring to that table or that discussion that I'm at. And I'm going to do it unapologetically because I am Black, I am a woman, and I have a disability. Take it or leave it. Either way, my career will survive. Like, I'm at that point in my life where I'm just like, this is what it is. And I'm going to shout about it. About being Black, about being a woman, about having a disability, every opportunity I get, because if I don't do it, who is going to do it? But also I think it's a thing of challenging people and their allyship. Like, it can't just be lip service, and you can't just put out a statement and be like, well, yeah, like we like had a whole bunch of people in a room and then we wrote this like well-written statement, and then you do nothing about it. Like, come on. But also like taking it back to the point of like stages and them not being accessible. It's that thing of, if it's not in people's like peripheral or in their forefront, they're not going to see or discuss it or think about it. But what my challenge to that is, once I've put it in front of you, you can no longer ignore it. And if you choose to ignore it, what kind of human being are you?
Okay. She said, what kind of, she just went there. Everyone, Miss Jackie just went there right here on Women in Music. Great points. And I want to get Galen in on this because Galen, you too are also a champion of venues being more open to disability in their spaces. Just go ahead and chime in. What are your thoughts here? How can this discussion of disability be within the discussion of the general discussion of diversity?
Yeah, oh, this is like my favorite thing to talk about is, so the real issue is, for me, like, people didn't understand when I started talking about equality, like what I meant by that. So they would think that if they had 4 people lift my wheelchair on stage and then somebody sets me in my wheelchair, as long as I can get on the stage, then it's equal. And that's not equal. Like, nobody's lifting up, maybe Beyonce, but probably nobody else is getting carried on stage, right? And so it's just not equal. And so I would go to the venues and my stage plot would say Galen Lee has an electric wheelchair. She needs a ramp. It would be right on the stage plot in bright red letters, all caps. And it never got paid attention to. And I'd be like, didn't you get my stage plot? Like, I can't get on your stage. And they're like, oh, well, we'll just lift you up. So they would do that. And I would say, you know, this isn't right. You should get a ramp next time. They would say, oh, yeah, we definitely should. And then I would go back and I would say, hey, I thought you were going to get a ramp without a ramp, right? And they would say, well, last time we just lifted you up and it was fine. And so I realized at that point that unfortunately it wasn't going to change unless I forced the change to happen. So that's why 2 years ago I decided not to play it in accessible venues anymore. I'm going to be honest, it limits where you can perform quite significantly. There's a lot of places I can't. But I figure if I don't do it now, there's another generation of little kids growing up that are still not going to be able to access those venues that I can't access now. And setting a really firm boundary allowed me to have harder conversations than I would have had with these venues. And a lot of them surprisingly come through. They're like, okay, well, then I guess we have to build a ramp. And so then they do it. Or they say, well, this isn't going to work. And I look for alternative venues like churches or community centers. And I do a lot of alternative venues. And I feel like, I think that unfortunately, it shouldn't have to be that the disability community has the burden of making it work, but at this point in time, it's just not happening. It is legally required in the US, and it has been for 30 years, hasn't changed the reality. And so I think at this point, we have to take it into our own hands. But where I am seeing my personal passion go is talking to non-disabled artists or artists with invisible disabilities and saying, hey, if we all do this together and we all say no to inaccessible venues, how much faster will the venues change if they're like, oh crap, I can't get anybody to play at my venue because it's not accessible? It will become a priority. And until it's a thing where they have to choose because it's limiting to them if they don't become accessible, I just don't think it's really going to happen. And that's a little harsh to say because I know even disabled artists say to me, well, I need to be able to get gigs, and I understand that, but I'm doing it. I mean, I really think we need to think about, like, what is it going to look like 40 years from now if we keep doing the same old thing? And I just don't think that we're going to get where we want to get in a fast enough time. So, and I obviously can't pass as, like, non-disabled. I mean, like, my arms are bendy. I use an electric wheelchair. Like, I know that there's no way I'm going to hide it from anybody, but that, I figure I might as well use that to my advantage and hopefully make it easier for people to see that, like, the reason you say no now is so that little kids can say yes in 30 years. And that's kind of my dream, but we'll see if we ever get there. I don't know, though, why it's not more in the mainstream, except for that I think we've created this dialogue in our country or in the world about how disability is something negative. And I think until we change the dialogue to this disability makes, I wouldn't create the same art if I didn't have a disability, right? Like, I wouldn't make the same songs. And so if you like my songs, then you better like the fact that I'm disabled, because they're like one and the same piece. And so to me, changing that narrative to see disability as a form of diversity that actually has assets, not just a bunch of barriers you overcome, but like it actually makes you who you are in a cool and unique way, and it colors like your work and it informs everything you do. If we could start talking about disability that way, then maybe people would see disability like more similarly as they do to race or gender or other kinds of diversity. But now it's like, you don't talk about being Black. I hope you don't. I mean, as like only the barriers you overcome, or maybe you do. Maybe that's something we have to change in race too. But like, I think disability is only ever talked about as like all these tragic things that you have to go through to be included. And that's like a crappy narrative, in my opinion.
Oh man, I hope you don't mind me jumping in for a second. I am like really hearing the thing that you're saying right now, because just last week, you know, while all of this Black Lives Matter, like, you know, full force, full front in America right now, it's like I read this amazing article on Refinery 29 about trauma porn, and the fact that like if you're a minority, in order to be taken seriously or to be valid in any way or important, or for your issues to be important, you have to like literally like expose yourself so bare. You have to tell them like all of your little issues and how it's really affecting you, for people to be like, oh yeah, the things that are affecting your life are important, you know. And I think that that's like a really weird thing, and the thing that I kind of struggle with the making your things visible is that there's this culture that, you know, it's like somebody books an interview, wants to come over to talk about my art, and before you know it, it's like, so can we like do some shots of you when you're like in your most vulnerable state and you're like putting on your prosthetic, and can we like lace your creative story with some like stuff for people to really feel like they're getting to know you? And it's like, no, you can't. Like, I'm not going to do that. And I think that, you know, and I think there is some kind of culture in that. And there's also, and I don't know if you, I would love to hear your ladies' opinion of, you know, I'm sure some of you have come across the lack of progress when it comes to the fashion industry, for example, right? And don't get us started there, right? But the thing is, what I've learned recently, as I've been sort of like, you know, just in a periphery of the fashion industry, is like, until I'm just not even the fashion industry, just any devices that are made for people with disabilities at all, right? It's only in the last few years that people with disabilities have been seen as consumers, that actually maybe we should design things for them. Maybe these are things they might want to use in the real world and not just at home, right? So it is very frustrating, but it is like, it's like this big sluggish thing that's trying to turn right now, you know, and like just exposing how like backwards it is and how, you know, unattended it is kind of like so important.
Yeah.
Well, I do actually have a question for you, Victoria, but before I go on, I just want to say, if you want to jump in, definitely say your name first. Just say,
oh, sorry.
Hey, yep, it's all good. That was the lovely Victoria. But really quickly, I did just want to, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I wanted to plug this. I'm actually wearing this really awesome necklace by Patty and Rocky, and it has Braille on it, and the Braille says, believe. There are so many amazing, inclusive fashion designers out there. Type in inclusive fashion, you will find some, but it's such a small niche. I really agree with Victoria that it should not be a small niche. It should be a big niche, and name brand clothing stores and clothing vendors should always have an inclusive fashion arm, just like they have a plus size arm. But here's my question to you, Victoria. You mentioned your, one of the things I want to talk about is just disability as a USP, as a unique selling point. And Galen touched on this too. It's like, you know, I don't want you to see my disability as something negative. I want you to see it as a unique selling point, like something cool that I have. And I know that I watched your video, Prototype. Oh my gosh, what a music video. Everybody should check that out. But it really showcases your diversity in an amazing light. And just to throw out another statistic, guys, 100% of the women on this panel are amazing. So check out all of their work. But Victoria, to you, talk to us a little bit about using your disability as your unique selling point. And maybe give some other disabled artists or artists with disabilities out there some advice on how to turn their disability into a unique selling point to actually make some money or to get noticed in the industry.
Well, I really love what Galen actually mentioned about, you know, the fact that the music that she creates is really unique exactly because of, you know, of her physicality and of how she approaches music. And like, I have to tell you that when I started the music career, like for a bunch of the initial time, I wasn't really visible about it at all. Like I just had like a really regular looking high heel prosthetic, and I just kind of like, I didn't really want to make it about that. But you know, I think that there is a balance, and I think that it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, and I have very much experienced it at times because, you know, if you're someone that is passionate about your art, you don't want to be cornered and feel like that is literally all you have to offer, you know. And I think that it's really important, like for me personally, the advice would be to really actually develop your skills and push your skills. And you know, if there is a really interesting way to incorporate your disability into how you're working, and you know, make it an artful R&D project, you know, so that somehow the thing that you're doing is really special. But you know, I think also like maybe that's not for everyone. Like I have known you know, some people who, for example, want to pursue acting, who, you know, might be wearing a prosthetic, who just simply don't want to be seen as a person with disability at all. So it's tricky. And I have to tell you, like, I definitely have a lot of very mixed feelings. That particular project that you're talking about, the prototype video, you know, that came about at a time when Channel 4 have just successfully done the Superhumans campaign for the Paralympics. And, you know, and it was just so massive. And like when they approached me and they said to me, listen, we just can't find anyone with a disability that is doing some kind of music performance, some whatever kind of work that we think is like in this sort of like pop, like polished sort of like thing. And I was just like, I was like, I don't know what that means. But at the same time, you know, when we started doing it, and I realized that actually this is an opportunity to create like some totally bonkers art, I was like, okay, let's do it, you know. And it's totally changed like so many people's minds, and it's been really impactful. But I don't know, I think that it's the unique selling point thing from me would be to kind of approach it with grace and with caution and with a lot of thought put into it, you know.
Right.
Can
Let me go.
can I jump in? Yeah, this is Galen. I just want to jump in. So I think you should, I mean, for me, I've always tried to navigate this because it is a little bit of a rocky terrain. I agree with you, Victoria. Like, I feel like at any point, all I really care about is if I feel like I'm authentically portraying myself in my art. And like, you know, when I do interviews, I make sure, like, when they want to connect my work to disability, there's really only two ways that I talk about it. I say, you can tell people how I learned, because so many teachers tell disabled people that they can't learn an instrument because they can't play it the regular way. And I think I don't care about that so much, because you don't hear like Bob Dylan talking about his first music teacher all the time. But I do think it's important to make that clear that there is a way to adapt instruments. But then the other part for me is the only time I really want to talk about disabilities in the context of disability rights. So I just kind of decided people will because they see me, or because, you know, if you're doing a piece of art with your prosthetics and it's different and creative, they'll take away what they'll take away. But ultimately, the art itself is what I want to authentically portray. And then the disability piece, I feel like I am okay talking about it in the context of equal rights. But beyond that, I'm like, you know, I don't really feel like I have to talk about it that often.
Yeah,
you know?
you know, actually, just one final thing is, you know, I really feel like we have a lot more directing and authority in these conversations that sometimes we kind of like allow ourselves to believe. Because I find that a lot of the time when you talk to people who haven't really come close or have experienced any sort of relationship with people with disabilities, they actually a lot of the time are really scared, and they don't even know what the hell they should be thinking. You know, I've showed up to a room many times, you know, maybe looking provocative in some kind of way or whatever, and people literally just don't know. They don't know, can they compliment me? Can they tell me that I look attractive? Like, what is happening here? And, you know, I think a lot of the time it is about kind of literally dictating your own narrative. Because a very small example, last year I headlined the Crazy Horse Paris show for like 2 weeks, which was a very massive deal for me in my career. But when I arrived, literally it's like hundreds and hundreds of interviews with mainstream medias. All they want to talk about was just sit down and be like, so how did you lose your leg? And that's how my conversation would start. like never mind about like a decade of career and art directing the whole show and like doing this stuff, you know. So I think, you know, and at the beginning I was really mad and I was just like, literally like, can you just, is there any more way of how we can reduce the creative work that I'm doing to the thing?
Right.
You know, but eventually I have to tell you, like, it was draining. I literally felt like I was trying to change the perception of like so many people, and what you feel is like, you know, people's projections just come onto you and you have to literally just like be like, no, like,
And just
no,
kind of
like, no,
let
this,
it.
yeah, like this is how, this is what I'm doing, and this is how you will see me. And honestly, it's relentless.
Right.
And on top of the show, I left like feeling so drained. However, did it eventually make a difference? Like, I had a meeting with the French, she's like a, she basically, she works with the prime minister, and she works with culture in Paris. And she basically said to me that the progress that was made during that time has literally like more than in the last decade. So it's worth it.
It's definitely tough, but it's always a bit of a fight. But I definitely agree with you. It's a rough fight, but I think it is worth it. Miss Jackie, I feel like you wanted to say something. So let me let you have the floor.
So Miss Jackie, like speaking, I was going to say, oh yeah, I agree with like what has been said, and I also think it's that point of the last thing that Victoria said of it being draining, like of constantly talking about this thing or constantly, but also it's that inner conflict for me personally. Like sometimes I'm the first disabled artist that X, Y, and Z person would have met, and not that I feel like I have to have a responsibility, but I feel this responsibility and this pressure to make sure that they have a good experience. And it's kind of like,
yes,
what does that mean? Because who told me that that was my job? And also, why do I feel that pressure? But it also goes back to like my point about intersectionality. Like I feel that when I'm in a room full of old white men, that, you know, one, I've got to act right, and two, I can't, you know, give them as much. I don't want to be the sassy black woman in a room. And it's that thing of like, when did these like outside pressures of society, when did I become aware, and when did I decide to do that? And it's draining because I'm not your ambassador for all things disabled. I'm not your ambassador for all things black women. I'm not. I just want to live and create my art and let my art speak. And for me, like, I didn't want to be an artist. Well, I didn't know I could be an artist because I never saw anybody who looked like me in the field that I wanted to do.
Preach.
Because like, even like Victoria, you don't know this, but you were the first person that was like, oh my God, what?
There's someone else?
Yeah, I was like, what? And she does music? What? And then I was kind of like, okay, so maybe this is a thing. So I don't have to, so I like loved and wanted to be in the music industry as far back as I can remember. And I thought I could only be the person who presses buttons and like produces and like goes under an acronym, and, you know, nobody knows me. But then I always wanted to be an artist, but because I thought, oh, okay, but how would I get on a stage, or how would I get in a studio, or like, I don't see anybody out there. And the first thing that always irks me is when I ask people to name another disabled artist, and the first thing they say is Stevie Wonder. Like, we love a Stevie Wonder. We love a Stevie Wonder. He has given us some music for the ages. But you're telling me that's the first person and the only person that you can name? We have a problem in the industry, like huge. And I don't understand why disability or disabled artists aren't more in the mainstream, or aren't pushed, or aren't on the same, or doing on the same stages as what they would call able-bodied artists. Like, I can give you a good hour show, you know, like, book me and I will give you a show of your life. But like, why is it a thing that I have to continuously fight festivals, fight stages, fight venues, I just want to create art. That is it. I don't want to have to have a second job of worrying about these things. And especially because I'm an independent artist, like I literally have to do the admin. I literally have to plan this, organize this, and do that, which I love. I've like learned so many skills, but I just want to make art and like
You just want to make music. Right.
That's
You're
it.
not here to be you're not here to be the ambassador. I hear that. I want to come to Vicki and Yvette. I've got another stat for you guys. The UN estimates that 75% of women with a disability are not working. We all identify as cross-intersectioned women with disabilities. Let me start with you, Vicki. How is it? What are your challenges as a woman with a disability? I mean, you're a powerhouse CEO, you're a booking agent, you're a manager, you work with artists, you work with brands, you work with sponsors to get things done. Just share with us your experiences and your challenges as not just a woman in the industry, but as a woman with a disability in the industry. Or does having a disability not even come near trumping just being a woman in the industry in the first place?
Well, I have to say, being in the industry that I'm in, which is all about disability, makes it much easier, of course, because I talk about disability probably 18 hours a day between all of the different projects that I do and and the and running my organization. My disability comes into play because I do have good and bad days. I have days where I am now, after 20 years, realized that like I have certain signals to myself where I should not actually be talking to people on certain days, because I know my mental health is not at the level that I should be having, a CEO or president level conversation.
Yes.
But I get people in our organization is, I think, so unique because we are a disability-led organization. All of our board have disabilities, and people are able to reach us 24 hours a day to talk, to ask questions. I get calls all the time that are like, I don't know what to do. This is not working. This is what's going on. And even though I'm not a certified advisor, I certainly am going to help somebody figure out, even if it is one of my great connections, because of doing this for so long. I have connections with over 500 organizations that deal with disability in some realm or another. To be able to say, you know what, I'm going to connect you with this person who I think will be able to give you the right of way. And then I also check on them.
Yes.
But I am also, I'm very big on we are a disability leading organization. We had 30 days of events. We had 80 events in 30 days that were all had interpreters. It was all captioned. There were different formats for people who needed it. That is our normal. That has to be like the baseline. We need to, like Galen, where she says, I am not performing in a venue that's not accessible. We have taken that step and said, this is our level base, ASL interpreters, captioning, providing formats, accommodating your whatever accommodation that you need, So now we can say to people, well, no, that's not right. You need to step up. This is how you be inclusive. Yes. And we're trying to be that. All of the events that I do, as you know, Lachi, nothing is done without accessibility for everybody.
Right.
So one of the things, or, you know, and that for me being a woman in this place, which, you know, disability has a history of being a very white male oriented, you know, group, whatever you want to call it, movement. And this is where we believe every voice, all of our voices count.
Right.
And that's with me as a woman, being disabled, being in the LGBT community, all of those intersectional pieces that I love all about myself, making sure that we give the space for everybody else to have those same platforms to have their discussions.
I agree fully. And she is not joking. Vicki is not joking about how amazing her events are at Disability Philly. I mean, always an amazing experience. Can I toss over to you, Yvette? Speaking of white male dominated situations, you are definitely in a white male dominated field.
Yeah.
How has being a woman with a disability in this industry that's already very difficult, what are some challenges you face? I know you've spoken about just being afraid to disclose sometimes and this and that when it comes specific to your disability, but how has being a woman in that space as well? Just let me know the challenges.
I mean, you know, it's not been, no one's ever been rude or horrible when you know, in the electronic music scene as for you as a woman, but it's just more difficult. You know, it's just more difficult to progress because it is so male orientated. I mean, for linking the two together, this is why I don't think I've ever disclosed that often or that much about my eye disorder when I'm DJing, because then people are going to be watching out for me making mistakes on the decks, right? And there's always an excuse if I do a bad mix, because every DJ does a bad mix. So, you know, you more often than not, the audience doesn't even notice it. You're the one that notices it. Like, I did obviously live streaming recently. I've done a lot of that, and I've never watched I've never watched myself DJ before, but I played it back. It was the weirdest thing, like to see the video and the audio. And I during the set, the live stream, I was like, oh, that was a clunky mix. That was awful. And then when I watched it back, there was nothing wrong with it at all. Like literally, but I didn't even know. So you kind of give yourself too much negativity, or, you know, your own worst critic. But I think if I was to disclose my disability, I think I'd feel more aware that people are going to be watching out for any mistakes, because obviously, yes, it is a lot to do with the hearing, and that's why I'm very proud to have. I didn't choose this career; it chose me completely. Like, you know, I love that. Yeah, I collected records since I was 15, but I never knew I was going to kind of come into this realm of actually DJing. But with my disorder, it makes sense. I'm like, well, these aren't working so well, but these are perfect, you know. So, So I'm glad I own that. But I kind of then don't want. It's like I don't want the excuse to be, oh, she's a girl, we'll let her off for that, and I don't want it to be she's blind, we'll let her off for that. You know, it's really
you don't want the pity party.
No, exactly. But also then use it as a selling point. Yes, it can get you that extra publicity. So where's the balance in that, you know? It's really difficult, but that's a really interesting stat you said about, what was it, 75% of women, is it in the music industry
with
or
disability? This is just in general.
In general. So what's really difficult is I've created my own job. I haven't got a physical disability. It's a sight disorder that's been very progressive, but I created my own job because, you know, it seemed easier to do that. I always had the fear that if I had a career, like I had a career in music marketing or just marketing for ages. And I thought, well, what happens when I can't see the screen anymore? You know, like you don't think, oh, there'll be speech to text. You just think I won't be able to do this, but at least with music, I can still do it. But then what happened was I got this beautiful creature. I wonder if you can see him. Yeah, he's asleep. that's my guide dog Kappa, and I got him 2.5 years ago, and I started taking him to festivals and things like that, and that's when it kind of made me realize actually I can't get a job, you know, to mark up my money, because obviously you don't earn much from DJing and from the music industry unless you're earning megabucks. You know, I used to work in restaurants, I used to work in pubs and bars, but I can't because I have him now. So weirdly, having a guide dog restricted me more. But it was just bizarre that actually kind of admitting you have a disability by getting to the point where you have a guide dog then actually restricts your life even more. And going to festivals, you know, it was that whole fear factor, or this, like you said, Victoria, they don't know how to deal with you. I walk into a festival normally without my guide dog. People are coming up to you, you're DJing, and wanting to talk to you. With a guide dog, people sidestep you like you've got the plague, because they don't either one want to, which is good. A lot of people are kind of they're polite and say, can we touch him? No, he's working. But because of the fear of not wanting to either disturb him or because of their own uncomfortability with it, they sidestep you massively. And yeah, I'm still the one DJing, you know?
Right. You're the
Yeah.
guest of honor.
Well, no, not saying that, but it's just still, you know, like it's just kind of admitting and showing people you have this disability that's normally hidden. It makes everyone else feel uncomfortable, not yourself.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah. So it's weird, but with
That
the work,
it's
with the work
rough,
side of things, though.
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. With the work side of things, I found, you know, I'm not surprised by that statistic because I found it hard to work when I admitted that I had a disability when it was working for another company. If I work for myself, if I create my own jobs, if I create my own revenue, if I create my ideas, all of that, I can work wherever I want to because I make it flexible for me. But if I wanted to actually get a standard job with a standard salary where I get paid holiday and have that kind of what you want every so often, which is that you know, that comfortability, that just that nice lifestyle, it can't happen because you have these restrictions. It's crazy. So you have to create your own life and you have to create your own roles.
Well,
Yeah,
can I
right.
jump in? This is Galen.
Go for it.
I guess two things. In America, at least, another stat is people with disabilities are twice as likely to be self-employed, and I think
Right.
that's probably why, because it's so hard to fit in the normal day-to-day like traditional scheme.
Right.
But again, I would challenge, and I think everybody, I was noticing in the chat, people are debating the word disability, blah, blah, blah. The reality is we all have to come to terms with this stuff on our own timeline, but I would really challenge you to consider, like, I don't know, it is hard to hear people choosing not to disclose. I'm going to be totally honest with you, because not all of us have that luxury of like choosing not to disclose. And I just wonder how much faster we could move this very slow ass movement forward if everybody was on board. And so I just would challenge you to think about like what's causing that. You know, the stigma around disability will continue, of course, in some people, but it doesn't take that much to change individual people's perceptions. Like, I wear these wings. I'm going to show you right now on my wheelchair all the time. Can you see them?
Okay.
Because I think wheelchairs are just not seen as like, oh, I could really accessorize this thing and it could be awesome, and like I'm gonna
Right.
make it cool. And I think we can do that individually. And when you meet people, they may come to you with preconceived notions, but then you can dispel them. And it's not your job. Like, I'm not saying that's your job, but it's not, unless they're very closed-minded, it's not something that you have to do again and again and again with the same person. The work world, yes, the work world is effed up, and that's where I think legislation comes in, and we need to be really vocal about the importance of employment for disabled people. But in terms of the stigma, part of it is just saying, like, I'm done with that stigma. And
You know,
now I'm
Galen,
moving.
I really agree with what you're saying, especially, I mean, look, people need to come to their own terms at their own time when it comes to disclosing. There's no, you have to do it now or you shouldn't do it. But I definitely agree that those who are able to hide their disabilities are actually, I mean, people who don't have a disability can relate to you quicker and get into the world faster. So you are a great bridge to help sort of bring people in a lot faster. And I've noticed that of myself when I started disclosing and people going, oh, really? Like, you're an asshole. I thought that people who had disabilities were like, you know, inspirational. I was just drinking beers with you last night and we were just talking crap for like 3 hours. I'm like, yes. We're also mean. So like, we're not all just inspirations and things like that. So I totally agree with you. And thank you for that stat. You know, I'm all about stats today. I want to get Victoria and Miss Jackie back into the fold of things. Another stat I want to throw out here is a study by respectability.org shows that less than 2% of people in entertainment, like in Hollywood and on movies and whatnot, are actually roles that portray disability, and even less than that are played authentically. What's wrong? What's up? And what can the entertainment industry do? What can the entertainment industry do, guys, to really get more visibility for people with disabilities, or to really hone in on some of these issues that we're talking about? I mean, yes, we've brought up a lot of amazing points and we brought up a lot of interesting challenges, but we're speaking to the industry right now. What can the industry do to help fix things or to help progress things. Let me start with you, Victoria, and then we're going to jump over to Miss Jackie.
Sure. Well, ironically enough, I guess like about 3.5, 4 years ago, there was this fashion show here in Los Angeles, and it was this brand who's really done a great job at creating adaptable fashion. And
Right.
after that, there was a whole panel with, you know, with actually some agencies and some actors, and it was very much around, you know, disability in Hollywood. And honestly, like, it is just very much a two-way street. Like, this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm seeing, is that like it, if you're a person with a visible or an invisible disability, like one way or another, you just have to get yourself out there and like just keep changing our rap, you know, because the reality,
Just go do it.
you know what I mean? Because the reality is like, you know, it's dumb, but like the history of why people either fear or don't know or like whatever is so dark and so primitive. You know what I mean? Like back in the day, like people used to see someone with like a burn in their face and feel that they were going to catch it if they looked at them. You know what I mean? This is what we're talking about. It's kind of supernatural and dumb and like really backwards. And so honestly, like visibility and actually like, and it sounds like really condescending, but there's been times where I've like, especially when I became a fellow at MIT Media Lab, and all of a sudden I was like a weird girl from London, from the underground scene, and I was like here with like all these like fancy people, and they would be like, oh, you're like so articulate, or you were like this, or oh wow, you did that. And I'm just like, yeah, like guess what, like, you know. And so it's the reality is that, you know, I think that we have to step it up. And I think that, you know, the statistics and the big gap just has to be brought to attention, you know, because, you know, that's definitely working for, you know, a lot of other issues that are kind of regarding minority groups right now, because it's just unavoidable. You know, people are starting to be held accountable for that. And I think that I honestly, like, it's the first time that I'm actually really genuinely excited about the possible changes in this whole scene right now, because it's possible, you know, it's possible. There is, you know, I do feel very thankful for literally millions of people from across all kinds of other minority groups right now who are like in the fire line, because that's what it's about, you know? And we're kind of like in a different category, but we shouldn't be in the different category.
No,
like it should be,
I totally agree.
It should be different. You know,
it should not be different.
No, and
it does. It does answer the question. I mean, I actually really like the point of you saying, like, I mean, this, I relate to this in more in my minority sense, but when people come up to me and say, oh, wow, you're very articulate for a Black girl. I'm like, are you serious? I went to NYU.
Yeah, it's that thing, you know, and also, and actually this is the one time where disclosure and non-disclosure are a very interesting point, you know, because there's been times where I walked into, you know, some kind of like, you know, a fancy event or whatever, and, you know, like I might be wearing a super badass prosthetic and high heels and everybody's like, look at me, or I might not be. And several conversations later, after actually making some friends and some meaningful connections, people are like, oh, wait a minute, like you're that girl that did that thing and you have a prosthetic. And sometimes that's a very positive thing, because someone not like knowing like that they should activate their prejudice immediately when they saw you, and actually getting to know you and discovering it later.
Right.
And I agree with you. It can be a bridge. I think it's a very good, interesting sort of like social play that can happen around this, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, my show, like I brand myself as, you know, I brand myself very femininely, I'm a sexual being. I like to go out. I like to party. I like to do crazy things that a lot of people don't associate with the disability community. And I continue to wonder why, because all of my friends that are in the disability community are way worse when it comes to drinking and hanging out and partying and having a great time than I am. And so I love to just see people be themselves and just happen to also have a disability. Let me come to you, Miss Jackie, with the same question. What are some things that the industry can do to really start helping close this gap and really start bringing things to the forefront that, I mean, now that we're sitting here talking to the industry, that you'd want to say?
I was about to say some things that weren't going to be politically correct.
Leave it to Miss Jackie.
Hey, it's a Zoom party.
Right?
It's the thing of, like, I agree with some of the points that Victoria brought up, and that thing of like, there's this like line, and I feel like nobody's willing to cross the line to communicate to the other side. And I think one, it is like us putting ourselves out there, but also I think it's the industry's responsibility to hear us when we speak, and like do something about it. And like, I think especially like with films and fashion and movies and music and the media and entertainment industry in general, cast the people that are that are the things that you are trying to cast. Like the same way blackface is wrong, cripping up is wrong too. And there are so many talented actors, musicians in the world that you're telling me you couldn't put in a little bit more work to find that person. And if you don't know them, somebody else might know them, and reach out to your networks. Oh, you have like 1 million followers on your organization, but you're telling me you couldn't put out a tweet and say, oh, we're looking for X, Y, and Z. Like, those kind of things annoy me, because they have these platforms, or they have the resources to put in that extra work to find the people that they want to work with, and not put in like people just because it's easier. So what is the point of your industry? Because then you're going to get the backlash. And if you just did what you were supposed to do in the first place, people would have been like, you know what, that organization or that company, they really did a thing, and they like stuck to what they said they were going to do. And it's just annoying, because it's like, however much I've put, or however many years I've like put into my craft and my like me making music, people always say, oh yeah, Jackie's emerging. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? I've been doing this for years.
Like, where is the cusp?
So when do I stop being emerging? Like, after I've put 50 years into the industry? Like, what does that mean? And I think it's respecting people's time and energy. And I can say this like with all of my chest. I can say this wholeheartedly. Like, I've put in the work, I've put in the energy, so that way when you do come and see a show, I'm giving 110%. I'm gonna make sure you have a good time. But then, like, when I see like articles or things written about me, oh yeah, emerging, oh my god, new, and I'm like, I've been here for a while, and I know other people have been here longer than me, but you still put some respect on the work that they put in the industry, because my able-bodied counterparts are no longer emerging, or they like, I don't understand that, like, industry especially needs to respect deaf, disabled, and neurodivergent artists. Like, they just have to. And when you start to respect us as artists and human beings, we can now work together to help the industry flourish and like make it better.
Yvette, what you got for me?
Hey, on that note, no, Miss Jackie, it's such a good point. I'm sure, Miss Jackie, you've heard of this organisation called Attitudes Everything. Yeah, really good organisation. They're UK based, but they do international work as well. And you know, I love hearing from, it's so good to hear from you girls and about your experiences, because you tend to just get so zoned into your own experience because it's a specific disability, and it's really amazing to hear about everyone else's. I know Lachi, we connected because we both got sight loss. It was so random how we did connect, but I'm bloody glad we did. It's not just this. It's not just this. We're working on a book called I Inspire, which is you know, to inspire young people with sight loss. Anyway, there are really good things happening. So Attitude is Everything have got loads of resources on their website which help international organizations too. So these people just need to talk. So I'm going to send the Women in Music team the links to this, so then they can share it to the network.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's got, I mean, even here, like basically it's got a whole page that says our DIY access guide is for you. So bands that aren't, you know, massively known yet, they can go to venues and make sure that they don't have to have a disabled person within their group. It's just, it says here, do you want to grow your fan base? Well, they include people that include everyone. So make sure that your gig is accessible, you know,
Right,
so this
right.
platform is actually promoting the fact that in order to grow your fan base as an emerging or growing or whatever band, make sure your gigs are accessible. And I think that's such an important thing.
Love that.
Yeah, exactly. Make the bands own it too. So not just because they're a disability linked band, it's because they want to be accessible too.
Right. That's I like that, and I'm sure Galen loves that.
Yeah, I do. I like that organization. This is Galen. I just wanted to jump in, like, specifically what I think the music industry could do. Miss Jackie kind of touched on it with you know, making sure they do the work to like freaking put out a tweet and ask if anyone knows of a disabled artist for this particular role, right? That's important. But then the other thing is there is very little infrastructure for disabled artists. There's no booking agencies I know of that actually commit to booking at accessible venues. I would work with them. I do all my own. I'm also DIY. I do all my own booking and everything. And part of it is because it was so, I would double do the work of my booking agent. He would book something, it wouldn't be accessible. I would have to do all the undoing and the redoing. And so at some point you're just like, this is pointless. Why am I paying a commission to somebody who is making my life very tragically difficult? And so I decided to do it on my own. The other thing is, I think that the idea, I do have to wonder, you know, the idea of always being an emerging artist, why didn't any record labels approach me after I won the Tiny Desk, right? Like, I'm curious. I don't have a real answer. My music's kind of weird. It's a little ambient and a little sad, but it doesn't mean that it sucks. And so, like, you have to wonder, because I just think there is an unconscious bias in the music industry, and I would like to see all forms of art, but for me, music, right? If you're gonna look at diversity, 25% of Americans have some sort of disability. 25% of your roster should identify as disabled, or at least that should be the goal, right? It doesn't mean you gotta like do a quota, but I mean, like, let's be real. How many of your artists are disabled? Probably none of them. Or if they have invisible disabilities, how many of them are getting their needs met through your agency? How many of them are actually getting gigs that are like not jeopardizing their mental health and well-being, right? Like, that's important. Yes, Miss Jackie?
I just have a quick question. Does anybody know of a deaf or disabled or neurodivergent artist who is signed to a record label?
There's not a record label, but there's a girl.
Not a record label.
Not a record label, but no. But there's a girl that's just I found her recently again, but she has got a sight impairment, and she's the first Radio 1 presenter.
Also,
BBC Radio 1 presenter.
Apparently, Billie Eilish also identifies as a person with a disability.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What does she identify as?
That I do not know. So maybe I shouldn't have started the topic. I will say that I was actually signed to EMI a while back. It's interesting because part of the reason that I was signed was specifically because they were interested in my disability, not necessarily in the way that I wanted them to be. And resultant of that, I ended up kind of like, you know, scrounging into my cubbyhole when it came to talking about my disability. But it's interesting because my late manager, R.I.P. Gary Salzman, one of the things he had said to me when he found out, because he didn't even know actually when he signed me to his management, and I was like his artist for several years, and he finally figured it out, and he's like, you know, you do a lot for, and I had no idea that you had a disability. Why didn't you tell anyone? And I was like, nah, everybody's gonna feel like it's weird. I mean, we work with major label artists. I don't want them to feel weird. And he was like, I'm an old Jewish man, and I'm inspired by you. So you need to show other people what you do. I want to round out this.
It's Victoria. I just wanted to to add a couple of things. Really amazing, actually, just hearing this. And it's like, I haven't really talked about my personal experience with the music industry very in detail anywhere, really, to be honest, or agencies or any of that kind of stuff. And, you know, I have to say that, you know, a lot of really, really weird experiences, you know, because like my work 6 years ago went viral. You know, I had like Akon calling me on a phone, and like I had, you know, so like I traveled around the world. You know, I'm very lucky. I have a very successful career now, you know, really just built off my own back. But the reality is that, you know, most industries have really embraced some part of the work that I do very to a good degree, other than the music industry. You know, I've literally made my whole living mostly off my music career for the decade now, literally traveling the world, working with huge brands. And, you know, I'm like not a part of the music industry at all. Like I'm completely independent. You know, I'm very lucky now. Like I've built my own like mini team of managers and different people that I work with and stuff. But it is wild. It kind of just, you know, there is like an inkling hope in me, not really for myself, but really just for everyone that's affected by this, that maybe now comes a time that, you know, they'll actually be like, oh, maybe it's something worth taking a risk for. Because let me tell you something, every single large organization or brand that has taken a financial risk on me has been fucking happy as hell, because every single project that we've done that's, you know, where we were able to work with top production team and directors and producers, and there was actually money to pay for things, everything turned out so great. And people are like, wow, it's amazing. When it comes to the music industry, it's like, oh, I don't know. I mean, it's risky. It's a risky business. But also, like, I would like, also like to anyone that's listening out here, like if you're a person with disability that has been signed by a record label, that their risk hasn't paid off, like make yourself known, because, you know, right. I would bet on the fact that no one's taking those risks. Like they're just not taking those risks, you know? And right. Like, and you're just never even gonna know. You're never even gonna know like what the possibilities are if you don't take that risk. So like,
I want to actually just, and it's interesting that you, because it's like, it's either one or the other, right? It's either you kind of want to keep it concealed so that you can try to get a bigger situation for yourself. Mm-hmm. Or they, once they find out, they may look at it and see a different type of dollar sign than you're interested in. They might see the inspiration porn, the gimmick, the shtick, and you may not want that, especially if you're trying to be, you know, seen as your counterparts and not seen as like a variety act. But I think it's really great to kind of round up on that note. I want to give Vicki one more, I want to give Vicki a stab at this question too, because Vicki, I know that you work with a lot of artists with disabilities that come through. A lot of them are super talented. A lot of them have visible, non-visible disabilities, but they're just amazing artists, a lot of which I've seen. And I just want to know what, as someone who works in the disability community and works a lot with artists with disabilities, what is your say to the broader entertainment industry and how it could be a better sort of ally to the disabled artists out there?
They have to take the chance. I mean, they're missing out on amazing artists. I work with artists from all genres doing different types of projects on everything. And I just think in music, we put together Disability Pride Philadelphia, which is a parade and a huge event for 9 years. And we have our day is filled with a stage for disabled artists to showcase their work. Why? Because they're not getting the gigs. Either they're not accessible or people don't want to take the chance on them. Our staging, everything is built around being accessible for everybody there. And I just think if the industry would take the chance on a disabled artist, that they would find that they would get so much more than what they would think it would cost to make it accessible for them.
Yes, yes. Oh, that preach.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen. I actually want to look at some of the questions we have. We've got like 10 minutes left here. So I'm going to designate Yvette as my resident questions asker.
Yeah.
So Yvette, why don't you take it away? And what'll happen is you ask the question and we can sort of, whoever has a great response can sort of either raise their hand or chime in.
No problems. But Billie Irish, how do you say her surname? Billie
Eilish.
Eilish, yeah, she's got Tourette's, but they're someone just posted on there. She's got Tourette's, but they are physical, not verbal. So
okay. Well, there you go. So there is the answer to that. Thank you, the internet.
Exactly. So let's have a look. So let's have a look from the Juba. Should we make more of an effort in the industry to curate, for example, features and collabs across the communities and maybe start creativity a lot more widespread? So I guess that means rather than being, like segmented in your disability kind of groups, collaborate and curate across the board for disability as a whole. So, I mean, I guess, Vicki, you do that in Philly anyway, but like as a bigger picture, that was the question.
Right. So should we focus a lot more on collaborating between ourselves? Galen, you have something?
I think it's important to realize that if you want to see a change, you can kind of make that change on your own. So one thing I'm trying to be more mindful of is booking other disabled artists as like my openers.
Yes, she is. I can attest to that.
I'm trying to do that, and I don't think it has to be the only criteria, but I think it's an important one to consider. And the other thing is just in general, like I think people see disability and art or disabled artists as like, oh well, they'll only appeal to this small percentage, but everybody knows someone with a disability. Everybody like disability and disability also crosses, there's just other emotions that cross over. It's not like, limitations or whatever. Like, I just think that disabled artists appeal to a lot more people than the industry assumes that it does. So collabs would be helpful because then you're like just increasing the audience that much more, and to help people realize that disabled art resonates with so many more people than just like the 4 people that have this disability in the audience. It's like, it's a wide ranging, it impacts so many different people in different ways, What were you going to say, Jackie?
I was gonna agree with the point of collaboration. Like, I'm collaborating with like as many people as who I feel like we connect on a level of whatever form that level is. So for me, I'm always like, yep, my DMs are open. And like, let's see if we can work and let's see what we can create.
Everybody throw it down in the DM with Miss Jackie.
In the DMs.
Miss Jackie, I'll DJ to your spoken word. There you go.
There we go. See, look, the collaboration
right
just
here,
happened now.
you hear it. That #1 hit, it started right here.
But it's that thing of like, I think just reaching out to other artists, but also it's that thing of not knowing where to look. So I think it's us putting ourselves out there. And like I just said, my DMs are open. So like, if you want to collaborate, meet me there and let's talk and see how we can do it. But yeah, I think we have to create the work until the industry hopefully soon recognizes that we are such an integral part. So let's not wait to create the work. Let's create it, and then we could be like, oh, so these are our demands because we create.
Yes, we walk in with the demands. Vicki, did you have a point on that?
Yes. So I do that every day with the work that I do because I create projects where disabled artists can work. One of the new things that I just I just received notice that I was approved for a grant, and the grant is around disability art and culture. And so one of the things I'm doing is I'm holding workshops, and since they're virtual, anybody can join them. And it's going to be learning about what disability art is and how it's different from somebody with a disability doing art. You know, it's taking your disability into, into what you're doing, a lot like what Galen does. And then what we're doing is we're offering out one-person shows and like stipends and materials and things like that to make those things happen. And I think that is super important. One of the really big pieces that we're doing is we're doing it geared towards children, K through 12, because that I think is an important piece to what we need to do, is to start, if we can start changing the minds of children before they are told that disability is a bad word, that they actually start seeing it as a beautiful piece of our diversity, you know, that helps. So if anybody's interested, you know, reach out to me.
You guys hear it there. Look for
Yep.
Vicki Landers. Miss Jackie?
She's just raising her hand.
I was raising my hand for Vicky. We'll
You
talk.
just raising the roof.
No, she
we-
she was just showing the woo
Showing some support. Can we get let's get one more question from you, Yvette. I
Sure.
think we have like 5 or 6 more minutes.
That's right.
So
yeah.
choose a good one.
Okay, so
Onus is on you.
well, listen. I mean, because it's so, because obviously some of us have hidden disabilities, some of us have you know, obvious physical disabilities. But Lachi, you've not answered any questions. I'm going to throw one at you.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, right. What advice would you give to someone with an invisible disability that people may not know of when you put a label to it? So how do you get people to understand when you look young and healthy, but that the invisible disability is still physical? It still manifests in a physical way.
Oh wow.
It's perfect for you. So how do you do that? Like when you
You know, it's interesting. Like for my specific experience, I mean, like I've said before, I've done a lot. I've worked with a lot of people. I've toured. I've been in big rooms. I've been in scary situations. And one of the things that I have found when I'm working in situations like that is that if I don't own myself completely, then I walk away feeling either embarrassed or I walk away feeling some type of way. If somebody says something to me and I feel, you know, perhaps disrespected or not seen the way I wanted to be seen, a lot of it is because I didn't represent myself fully and I wasn't 100% true to myself. Now, this is my personal experience, but I've recognized that when I completely own myself fully and I walk out on the street 100% confident in everything about myself because I've just laid it all out, there's nothing you can say or do that will make me walk home feeling like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. I will walk home going, well, that's me. So if you don't like it, and I believe that everyone, I mean, there's so much insecurity in the world. And there's so much to be insecure about, especially in today's society with everything that's going on. So I personally believe that just owning who you are fully and completely helps. And when I walk into these rooms with these big, scary producers and big, scary DJs, I mean, they're just as insecure as I am, I learn. And I can walk in more confident than, I don't want to name any names because I don't know who's watching this or not, but I can walk into a room more confident than they are because I'm owning myself more than they are at that time. And you can feel it. You feel it in the energies when you know someone owns themselves fully. So I always encourage you, whether you have a visible disability and non-visible disability, to at the very least 100% own it to yourself. And you can slowly start to build it out to maybe to your friends and to your whatever. But once you put it completely out there and you're not afraid of it, because fear is the killer of all things, once you're not afraid of it, you really can conquer anything. I know it sounds corny, but you really can, because even when you fail, it's not really a failure to you.
That is so well said. That is so well said.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, I want to just open the floor right before we leave for everyone to do a 10-second plug of whatever they have coming up. I'm going to go first because I am shameless. My name is Lachi. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with us. I actually have an a cappella song that I arranged myself of Genius coming out tomorrow. So I really hope you check it out. And I also have an EDM track called Duality coming out on a label on September 25. So I hope you guys check it out and check me out at Lachi Music. I'm everywhere. I've worked with everyone. You cannot miss me. Let's go ahead and start with Galen. What do you got going on, girl?
So I do a live YouTube show every Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, on my YouTube channel, Galen Lee. I'm working on a memoir about accessibility in the arts and disability culture. Nice. And that should be coming out probably 2022, but you can follow my work and support it at patreon.com/GalenLee. And if you want to look up my music, it's just violinscratches.com. So that's my website. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Galen. Victoria, I'm going by my screen. So Victoria, what do you got for us?
Go for it. Yeah, I don't have a particular thing to plug in right now, but I'm actually working on a new record and several other.
Nice. There you go, guys.
Hey. And several other really, really exciting, like innovative collaborations and stuff. So definitely watch the space. I mean, anyone who isn't familiar with my work, definitely go to my website, just victoriamodesta.com, and follow me. I post a lot of interesting art things, and get familiar with all the different things that I've done so far. And hopefully it won't be too long until the next band. So.
Nice. And you guys, that's Victoria with a K, so don't sleep, all right? Speaking of Vicki's, what do you got for us, Vicki Landers?
Okay, so you can all reach me. I put my email address in chat. It's Vicki@disabilitypridephiladelphia.org. I do have this grant that I'm starting in October. I also, a big thing that I'm interested in talking to everybody who's interested in is that December 3rd, an organization, a committee basically across the world, there's 8 countries so far that have joined us. We are going to put on an 8-hour, what we call Thrive Aid. It's a protest of art for International Day of Disabled People.
Nice.
And if you're interested, reach out to me, because we're looking to fill basically 8 hours worth of collections in 3 to 6 minutes to give everybody that point, and just to show everybody what we can all do in disability art in all genres. So
Awesome. You guys check her out. Can we hear what you've got to say, Misschivers?
Yeah, so this Thursday, I have the final of a 6-part series happening online with Adam Audio. They're a amazing studio monitor company, and we've been doing a 6-part series on women in music, and we've got the final one featuring Lachi on Thursday, and it's 6 p.m. BST. So what time is that for you, Lachi?
I believe that's noon or 1?
1 p.m. I think.
1 p.m.
Yeah, 1 p.m. So that's going to be the final. It's going to be the final one. It's about women in music, women navigating the music industry. So we've got Lachi, we've got Wendy and Lisa, who were part of Prince's Revolution band, and we've got an amazing sound designer, stage designer called Laura Escude. So there's the 4 amazing women on that. And then following that, I have a book coming out in October on World Sight Day called I Inspire, which is going to be on Amazon, which includes lots of stories how me and Lachi met. And yeah, check me out on Facebook, misschivers.com, Facebook Misschivers, DJ Misschivers, sorry. But the way to watch the Adam Audio one is go to their YouTube. Just search YouTube Adam Audio or Facebook Adam Audio, and it's free to link in on there.
Apparently, Yvette and I are best friends. So Miss Jackie, please plug.
Yeah, so I'm currently working on a couple of projects at the moment. And what else am I doing? I'm doing a lot of research on intersectionality and what that means to be Black and disabled and in London and the world, and that's kind of the research that I'm doing at the moment. And yeah, just follow me on social media, Instagram especially, because that's where I put my shenanigans. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome, you guys. Everybody check everyone out that was here, and actually I encourage everybody here to check each other out. I really love the concept of collaborating. Everybody check each other out. Let's keep this conversation going beyond this panel. I want to thank Women in Music for inviting me to moderate. It was like the hugest honor to be here with these amazing women, and I want to thank all the women who came through. Some of you I knew, some of you I did not, but I'm really hoping to get to know you better because you are all freaking amazing. I don't know how to end this, but I'm just going to say it's over.
Thank you, Lachi, for moderating the panel. That's wonderful. You did a really great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome to meet you all.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great night.